Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. It's a great pleasure to have you all here. I'm sure we're all excited, eh?
Yeah, right.
Yes. Yes, we.
Okay, so we'll just wait a bit for our day joiner. So just to set the ground rolling, I'm very certain that we have specific reasons why we're here. Apart from learning, I'm sure there are also some very specific things that we have in mind. So this might be a good time to just share it. So if you have some expectations you've set up, we'll be very happy to hear that. So if you just click on the raise hand option, I'll be very happy to get you in to have that, share that thoughts with us, okay? Mhm. Oh, here she is. Let's welcome Tobi. Let's welcome Tobi, please.
Hi, sorry. I was trying to put my thing together and it took it sent me back a little bit. I apologize for the delay.
Sure, sure. That's great. That's great. So, how are you, Dr. Tobi?
I'm doing well. Thank you guys for having me. Kind of trying to compose myself. I'm sorry. I really apologize for coming in a little bit late, but I'm ready. I'm doing well. Can everyone hear me okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You will not hear my voice much for the rest of this session. She's the one headlining it. So, can we confirm that we're all hearing her, please?
Can
Hello,
you?
I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. Hello.
Okay.
Great.
All right. So I think that's brilliant. Ada might want to give us a prompt on when we should start. Ada?
Yes, Blossom, we can start now. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I would want to first of all welcome Dr. Tobi. I'm sure you all saw her on the flyer and you're wondering, okay, what is it exactly? There are some thoughts she shared with me earlier that are really, really beautiful. So before I introduce her, I just want us to just give her a round of applause. I don't know how we'll do that, but probably if you're able to put on your video, we'll hear you clapping.
Yay!
Oh yeah, we can actually hear the audio of it. Uh, so, man, this is huge. This is huge. I'm really honored to be here, and I'm very certain that we would all be blessed and would all improve on our learning in the course of the evening. So, Dr. Tobi Odunsi is a psychiatrist, and back here in Nigeria, we would usually refer to psychiatrists as psychiatric doctors. You know, it's funny. But then I think our attitude to mental health and why we should have a balanced conversation regarding mental health is really, really improving in Nigeria. Prior to now, we never thought that things like suicide were things that happened in our country. But I'm sure we all remembered several years ago when there were a lot of stories about people jumping into the third mainland bridge and all that. So these are not things that just start. You know, there's a process to it, And if people are able to seek help on time, then it makes it easy for them to actually get the right help that they deserve. And Dr. Tobi Odunsi is one of such phenomenal and remarkable people in the world that have been providing that therapy, that help that people actually need for them to be able to just probably just a bit of a mind, have a bit of a mind renewal, and then they are able to think of not just ending it. So Dr. Tobi is in her fourth and final year of psychiatry residency training. Her clinical interests include depression, anxiety, women's reproductive um, behavioral health, and psychotherapy. She's also the founder of Mental Status Quo, a platform and podcast that focuses on mental health education and decreasing mental health stigma. That for me is a very important conversation we need to have in Nigeria. So her hobbies include dancing. Oh, I'm hoping she's going to dance for us, and traveling. Well, that second part of the hobby with the COVID-19, I think you might need to retweak that a bit.
No, that's definitely something that I've been bummed about since COVID-19 started, because it's like an escape for me.
Yes, so, but I'm sure there are e-travel options that we can start embracing with time. So
Yes.
that might just be something for the future.
Exactly.
All right, so you can connect with her on social media at Mental Status Quo on both Twitter and on Instagram. I'll probably just share the link directly as a chat, so we can be able to just click and connect to that. Okay. So the next voice you will hear will not be my own, because Dr. Tobi has an amazing 45 minutes or even 1 hour conversation that she has specially and specifically dedicated her time to prepare for this evening. So ladies, do we have brothers in the house? Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome Dr. Tobi Odunsi as she takes it up from here. Please, Dr. Tobi, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Ms. Blossom, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you, DYGL, for having me here to be a speaker for your D3 this quarter. I really appreciate it. Like Ms. Blossom was saying, I love to travel. Some other things about me that are interesting is that I actually went to boarding school in Nigeria. I went to Alashere before I moved here and finished high school and completed all of my education. So that's just one thing I'd like to share with everyone. I also like to joke around and tell people I consider myself a professional amebo, which essentially means that I like to kind of get to know people, obviously for the purpose of helping them achieve sustainable mental health. Anyway, so that's a little bit about me. I'm going to share a slideshow, so that can help us with our talk. So I'm gonna work to share my screen. If I can figure that out, because it looks a little different. 1 second, please. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it from here.
Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna put it up as a slideshow. Okay, can everyone see that, the slideshow?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and secondly, do you guys see, because I know I'm sharing my screen, do you guys see the Zoom thing with you guys in there? I just want to make sure it's not distracting. Does everyone see just the PowerPoint, or do you see the Zoom part of the PowerPoint? Just making sure.
We're seeing both yourself.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'll figure it out. 1 second, sorry.
Okay, so while that is going on, it might be important for us to note that if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat box right there, or you can note it down because we're going to have a very interesting Q&A where she'll be able to answer specifically to the questions that we have. All right, it's a safe space, so feel free to ask any question at all. Thank you.
Okay. For some reason, when I'm on Zoom, it won't let me share the screen. Like when it doesn't give me that option. So I'm not sure why. But I'll share the screen and I'll just minimize my Zoom. I just won't be able to see you guys as I talk. So let me do that instead, just in the interest of time.
All right.
Okay.
Likewise, see. So this for internet, yes, exactly. Original SIM card, yes, yes. So I think that's a lot go to the generator.
All right. PowerPoint is up. Sorry, guys. Okay. So today's topic is how to develop a shock-proof mindset. And so essentially, we're going to be talking about building mental health habits for current and future crises. And so ground rules, like Ms. Blossom was saying, this is a safe space, a place we can speak freely and listen to each other non-judgmentally and with respect. This presentation, I'd just like to let everyone know, is for educational purposes only and not medical advice. That would mean that I'm your doctor and I'm not y'all's doctor. So I just want to let that be known. And then we are going to have fun. This is going to be interactive. I know we've had a little mishaps starting from the beginning, but we're going to have a good time with this. And my hope is that you guys would leave with a new set of tools to help you navigate life during and beyond the pandemic. Also, if you're not talking or saying anything, please mute your mic and you can take pictures, but please give credit, okay? All right. So the first thing that I wanted to do is ask a question. How are we doing? And essentially, anytime you guys see this quotation sign, that means we're going to be interactive. So we're going through a pandemic. Everybody is dealing with emotions. And the first way I wanted to kind of start this conversation was ask, how are you doing? So if there's anyone who is in the audience that would like to share how they're doing, just you can put a message or raise your hand and it can call on you and see how you're doing.
Hello?
Hello.
Hey, my name is Nikki Obiako.
Hello, Nikki. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you guys so much for providing this platform for us online today. This virtual reality we're all living now.
Yeah, yeah, essentially. And thank you for coming. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm actually sipping on my comfort tea while I'm paying attention to this right now, this session. Um, I wanted to express that during this quarantine period, it's definitely been challenging in the sense of, you know, not being able to be as free as before, not being able to go to as many places. But I definitely have been using this time to develop my knowledge and to research more about you know, skills, especially during this time when everything is turning virtual. I know in certain areas the lockdown has been released, or it's been released and given a certain limit in a day.
Yeah.
But I feel that it's very important for us to educate ourselves and learn new skills and also work on our personal development in this time. So I've definitely been following a lot of influential, motivating individuals and professionals, and trying to learn how to stay sane, you know, during this period, because it can definitely be quite challenging. Some of my friends have lost family members and friends due to this virus. Yesterday, one of my newfound friends said he's lost up to a total of 70 family and friends around the world. So I can only imagine how some people are feeling and what they're going through at this time. But making sure to develop yourself personally, mentally, and also spiritually is very important for me during this time. And it's what I would advise others to do, and to not be afraid to share how they feel with their close, you know, relatives or siblings. It's very important to have someone to release to, or to have a platform like this that we're on right now, where it's a safe space, it's a free space for us all to communicate and provide support for one another.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I really, really appreciate that. You stepping forward and sharing that with us. Thank you. So I'll move on and wanted to highlight what we'll be talking about today. So the first thing we'll address is, how do we manage anxiety, fear, and stress during a crisis? So the question being, how are we managing our anxiety during this COVID time? How do we maintain relationships in a time of physical distancing? So how do we keep our relationships with our friends and family and loved ones afloat while we're physically distancing? And how do we build mental and emotional resilience for the future through habits and routines? So we have the quotation marks again, and wherever you guys are, I just want you to take a piece of paper or your phone and just write down what you notice in the room you're in. I'll give us about 30 seconds to do that. Just write it down, okay? If you have a phone, a piece of paper, whatever it is, wherever it is that you are, just write down what you see. It could be that you have, there's a pen on the floor, something, just put that down. Okay. So that piece of paper or that note that you took, just put it aside. We'll get back to it at a later time during the discussion. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is, how do we manage anxiety, fear, and stress during a crisis? So I'm going to go through a couple of definitions. The first one being crisis. So a crisis is a time of intense difficulty, trouble, or danger. And during a crisis, you know, we are known to experience emotions, which are a state of feeling. So emotions range from being happy, being sad, being angry, being anxious. during a crisis, it is inevitable that we will feel all kinds of emotions. One moment we may be happy, one moment we may be sad, another we may be anxious. That's just how our body responds to being in crisis. And then whenever we're in crisis and all these emotions are going on, we're forced to think about coping. So coping is dealing with or facing difficulties or problems and responsibilities in a calm manner. And then we have coping skills, which are essentially our toolbox for dealing with difficulties, problems, and responsibilities. And so we have another quotation mark here, which essentially means I'm going to be asking a question. So if there's one person who'd like to share how they deal with stress, one or two people, if you don't mind sharing, and I can go first if it'll help kind of warm the room up. But for me, my go-to thing for dealing with stress is working out. I've noticed that if I'm stressed out,
Yes, who is that?
This is Dr. Odunsi speaking. I've noticed that if I'm having feeling anxious or stressed, if I just work out for about 30 minutes, I feel better. I was wondering if anyone else has any other ways that they cope that they wanted to share with the room today.
Hi.
Hi.
So for me, one of the ways that I can deal with stress is by listening to music. Music has a really big impact on my mood, and it just helps to really make me feel a lot better. Another one is if the sun is shining outside, just going outside and just watching. That really helps me.
Nice, nice. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else wanted to share?
Hi.
I want to share.
Hi.
Fatima from Kano.
Hello. Hi, Fatima.
Hi. Oh, I drive and then crank up the volume
You drive and crank up the volume?
for the favorite music. And then I have this playlist, I named it Roadkill.
Oh, nice. Nice. I like that. So we have a couple of people that like to listen to music. Anybody else wanted to share? Okay, that's fine. There'll be more opportunities for us to share some things with each other. But as you guys can see, there's two different people who say they enjoy listening to music. I've mentioned that I like exercising, and someone else said they like going outside and getting sunshine. And so something I noticed, like common coping skills could be for some people exercising, journaling, meditating, and dancing. So those are just some common ones that I've heard. And now I'm going to add listening to music after talking to some of you guys today. But I wanted to share some more coping skills that I think could be practical or helpful, especially because I think it's very easy to use some of these. These are coping skills that we could use with our five senses. So you think about five senses, we have our sense of smell, our vision, touch, hearing, and tasting. And so these are some coping skills that we could use with those different senses. So the first one is being smell. So you could cope through smell by cooking. So you're cooking, the aroma of the food could be helpful, like, with dealing with stress. Baking, smelling flowers. If you're a candles type of person, scented candles, you can light a scented candle for a couple of minutes to an hour. Vision. So if you like to draw or you're, creatively inclined, drawing is one way of coping. Painting is another way of coping. Watching TV, of course, in moderation, your favorite TV shows, watching videos. And I put videos here. You can think about things like YouTube, whether it is, watching that makeup artist or DIY stuff, so do-it-yourself type projects on YouTube. Another form of videos that I found to be helpful is I know some of you in this day and age with Instagram and Snapchat, people record videos and then they download it. It's always nice to go back and look at memories, especially if you're missing a close friend or family member, and looking back at those memories. So videos, that's another way that we could use our vision to cope. And then we have touch. And so taking a bath, you know, if you're able to fill up a tub, put some Epsom salt, bath bombs, or taking a hot or a cold shower, getting a massage. I know we're in a time of physical distancing. If you're physical distancing or in staying safe at home with a family member or a loved one who can maybe give you, you guys take turns giving each other massages, you know, that would be a way to use touch to cope. Our sense of hearing. So music, like some of you guys have mentioned, listening to podcasts, audiobooks, going outside and listening to nature sounds. For some people, listening to the rain is therapeutic. You can also go on YouTube, look up rain sounds, white noise. Those are things that can help calm our mind and help us kind of get ourselves calmed down. And then taste. Eating, I put that in moderation because I know some of us have probably gained the quarantine 15 because we're eating a lot, but eating in moderation, you know, taking the time when you're eating to think about how the food tastes. Is it sweet? Is it salty? What is the shape of this food? Appreciating the food is one way that we can cope using our sense of taste. A lollipop or a popsicle, if you're able to have that, the sensation of it being cold is another way to kind of calm ourselves down or cope. And another thing I wanted to address specifically because I've noticed and I've heard questions about this is sleep. So during a time of crises or when there's a lot of change in our lives, our sleep can be affected. And so how do we kind of make sure that we are able to sleep effectively? Because sleep is very, very important. Good sleep is very vital for us to be able to function. And so some things that I think are helpful are trying to avoid naps during the day, avoiding caffeine at least 6 hours before you go to sleep. And on here, I put that the bed is for sleep and sex. And essentially, the reason I'm saying that is a lot of us spend time in our bed watching TV, reading a book, doing all kinds of activities. And that often is interesting. The way our brain works, it can disrupt our association with sleeping and what the bed is for. And so in order to help regulate being able to sleep, it's important that the bed serves two purposes for you, for sleep and for sex. That's it. You should not be watching TV in your bed. It's going to disrupt the way that you're sleeping. And then going to bed and waking up at the same time every day. So if you're able to schedule, like I wake up at 8 a.m. and then I go to bed at 10 p.m., whatever it is that works for you, doing that every day is also another way of getting your body to be on that schedule and keep your sleep regulated. And then for some of you who may try all of these things and you're still in bed having difficulty sleeping, get out of bed, do something relaxing, and then go back into the bed, okay? So that is a quick discussion on how we can manage our anxiety and fears during a crisis. The next thing that I wanted to talk about on our agenda is maintaining relationships during a time of physical distancing. And so the question is, how do we maintain strong relationships with our friends and loved ones when we can't be with them physically? And I really like this question because I think a lot of us believe that because we are in a crisis, we no longer can do the things we used to do with our family. Now, in some ways that is true, but if you think about it, a lot of the things that we're able to do before, we can still do them again, but creatively, okay? And so here are some things that I think would be helpful, and some of you guys may be practicing this already, but phone and video calls, you know, if, and like you guys might agree, you were probably calling people before the pandemic and before the crisis, but probably more so now than before. So you're calling them, you're doing video calls because you're not able to maybe see them like you were able to. So video calls is one way of keeping contact. I know that me and some of my friends, we call each other every day to every other day. And sometimes we're not necessarily talking, but we have our video on and we may cook together or, you know, study together or do something together. And that is one way of keeping yourself connected while you're physical distancing. Another thing is having game nights, which some of you have done, probably multiple Zoom calls, Zoom game nights, and are probably going to be done with Zoom when the pandemic is over. But that is another way to be engaged. Schedule game nights, game days, depending on everyone's schedule. Text messaging. If you're not into video calls or phone calls, send a text. Tell them that you're thinking about them, that you miss them. Just send that message, and probably more so regularly than you were doing before. And then another thought I had was challenges, which is another way to kind of spice everything up. Is like, you know, you speak with your friend about, you know, let's do an exercise challenge. We'll each donate like a certain amount of money if we can, or we have this prize that whoever wins the challenge is going to get that. That just kind of keeps you engaged with them because you're communicating with them and also doing things with them as well. Okay. I'm just gonna look, I see that there's a couple of things in the chat. I'm gonna just quickly look and see because I haven't been able to look, but I see some people say, okay, someone made a comment about being claustrophobic, and I'll get back to that soon. Someone says sleeping helps them deal with stress. Music works for them. They turn to movies. Okay, and that they love candles too. Okay, and so someone had talked about being claustrophobic. If it's okay, I'll probably talk about that a little bit more during our Q&A session. Okay. All right. So moving on, the third part of our talk today, which is probably going to be my favorite part of that, is building mental and emotional resilience for the future through habits and routines. So the question is, how do we become mentally and emotionally tough? What habits do we need to form to help us thrive mentally now and in the future? And so there's two things that I'm going to be covering in the building part of our conversation today. The first thing is acceptance, and the second thing is mindfulness. So acceptance and mindfulness are a big part of some of the therapies that we use to help treat people dealing with anxiety or depression or just having difficulty coping through life. And I thought it would be nice to kind of introduce these concepts to you guys because I think it will help a lot with dealing with stress. And so the first thing is acceptance. So our number one reaction when we are in pain or under stress is to get upset, feel angry, blame the situation. And if we sit and think about it, that's our number one response. But at the end of the day, we notice that the pain still exists and the situation more than likely stays the same, right? And so what is acceptance? And so understanding that the present moment is due to many events and decisions. So if we think about the pandemic, it's, you know, not blaming anyone in particular or anything in particular. It started from a series of events, right? Someone got sick, somebody traveled, went somewhere, we didn't, you know, do the necessary measures. And it went from like maybe one person being sick to a couple of people to now becoming a pandemic, right? It didn't just come out of the blue, it started somewhere. So the present moment always happens because of many events and decisions. And then acceptance puts into perspective that we can't control our situations, but we can control our response and our reactions to these situations, okay? It doesn't mean that you give up and simply accept every bad situation that happens to you. It just means that you change your attitude, So that's what acceptance is. And so this is actually one of my favorite quotes. It's by a woman named Cheryl Strayed. It's from a book called Tiny Beautiful Things. If you're looking for something to read, I would completely recommend that, or highly recommend that. And it essentially just says acceptance only asks that you embrace what is true. It doesn't say that, you know, you should give up or do anything. It's just saying in this present moment, this is what is happening and this is what it is. That's what acceptance is. And so I wanted to share an analogy that might help put this more into perspective. And so this right here is the anxiety or worry monster, right? So you see sadness, unworthiness, self-doubt, heartbreak, anxiety. And then this guy over here is us, right? This is us. And so we are in a tug of war with our anxiety, right? The natural reaction if you're in tug of war is when one person pulls, you pull back because you don't want to fall into this pit right here, right? And so we're pulling back and forth, pulling back and forth, pulling back and forth. Now, what about, you know, like this is our anxiety, right? The more we pull on this, the more energy we're putting into it, sometimes the worse we feel. But what if we drop this rope? Instead of fighting with the emotions that we're feeling, what if we just drop this rope? What happens? Well, a couple of things. We embrace and accept that, okay, we are anxious. We let it pass through, and then we're not fighting and wearing ourselves out so that we don't fall into this pit right here. It essentially helps just let go of fighting what we're feeling and just allow it to pass through. And during that time, when you like accept it, you're able to just let what happens, think about things, and probably tackle the anxiety more easily. Another analogy, because some people might not completely agree or understand like that concept, is quicksand. Now, I don't know if anyone knows what quicksand is. I personally have never seen quicksand, and I hope I never have to be in quicksand. But essentially, if let's think about like stuck in the mud as like a Nigerian kind of like a thought. So, or an analogy, you're in quicksand, right? And when you're in quicksand, what happens is you sink. You're in the sand, you're sinking, you're sinking, you're sinking. And our natural tendency, if you are sinking in sand, is to try to get out of it. And so we're struggling, trying to get out of the sand. But what happens is the more you struggle, the more you sink, right? But if you stop trying to get out and just actually lay in the quicksand, it actually makes it easier to get out of the quicksand. And then someone can throw you a rope and you can come out of it. So the same thing, like the monster, the quicksand is our anxiety, right? And the more we're fighting the anxiety or the worry or the feelings that we're feeling, the more the more difficult it is for us to get out of it. And so acceptance just asks that we embrace what is true, allow the emotions that we're feeling to happen and pass. One thing, like I know someone said they feel claustrophobic. It's our natural tendency to not want to deal with pain, not want to deal with stress. But the truth of the matter is it's inevitable. We're humans, we're supposed to experience emotions. And when we are fighting emotions, it makes it difficult for us to get through that and process that. And so practicing acceptance as best as we can, I know there's going to be times that we're not able to do it, but as best as we can helps us deal better with whatever anxiety or sadness that we may be experiencing. So essentially, acceptance sounds like, you know, this present moment is perfect even if I don't like what's happening. Focusing on the present moment. Reframing, like my thoughts don't control my life, I do. I can be anxious and I can still deal with the situation. So you're accepting and acknowledging that you are anxious. You're not pushing it away, but you can deal with the situation. My feelings make me uncomfortable right now, but I can accept them. And also thinking like, this is an opportunity for me to deal with my fears. So that's what essentially acceptance is. The next thing that I think will be helpful is mindfulness. And so I wanted to do a quick survey or thing, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to see it, and I think you can raise your hand on the chat for Zoom, but raise your hand if you have ever driven home and did not remember the experience or the roads that you took. Let's see. Is that a few of us here? Okay. Raise your hand if you had a conversation and suddenly didn't know what the other person was talking about. I'm very guilty of that. I talk to people every day. It's part of my job, and there are times that I'm like, oh my gosh, what were we talking about? I'm sure some of you can identify with that. Raise your hand if you've walked into a room and forgot what you came to get. I feel like everyone in here has probably experienced that. Like, I think that happened to me early this morning. Like, I walked into a room and I forgot what it was that I came to get. But essentially, the reason I'm bringing this up is I think a lot of us can relate to this. Like, our lives are on autopilot. We're just on the go, on the go, on the go, that we are just moving from point A to point B. And so that is where mindfulness comes in. So I have the quotation marks again, which means I'm going to be asking the audience again a question. So mindfulness, mindfulness. Some of you might have heard of this. Is there anyone who wants to share what they believe mindfulness is? Anyone?
Okay, I think Deborah has her hand up, so I'm going to unmute her now.
Okay, thank you.
Deborah, if you can hear me, can you unmute yourself? I'm trying to do it from here.
I've done that.
All right, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. It's nice to be on this platform. I think mindfulness is being attentive to what is going on around you.
Yes.
Either in your business or your relationship.
Yes.
Or yourself, your thoughts,
yes.
How you respond to things,
yes.
To external factors or something internal. So that is my take on it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, and you are completely correct. Paying attention. That is what mindfulness is. Anyone else have any ideas or thoughts about what they think mindfulness is? Okay, that's fine. And so mindfulness, like Deborah was saying, is the meditative practice of observing your own present moment, thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations in a non-judgmental manner. And I'm I guess emphasizing a non-judgmental manner because I remember like a couple of slides ago, I was asking, raise your hand if this has happened, raise your hand if that has happened. And some of us may have been feeling bad about, oh my gosh, yeah, I do that all the time. But it's normal. Like, as you can see, a lot of us experience a lot of those things where we're just going on autopilot. It's just the way our mind works. We have the natural inclination for our minds to wander. But mindfulness allows us to non-judgmentally allow ourselves to be distracted or bring ourselves back to the present moment, to our thoughts, to our emotions, to the things that we're feeling in a non-judgmental manner. It helps us focus on the present moment and helps us better control and soothe our overwhelming emotions. It will help you learn to identify and separate judgmental thoughts and the overwhelming experience and emotions, overwhelming emotions from your experience. It isn't shutting down or turning off your mind. That's not what it is. And mindfulness takes practice. And so we're gonna practice. So the first activity that I want us to do is called the Mindful Minute. And so I'm going to see how we're going to do this because I know we're virtual, but essentially what I want everyone here to do, if you have a clock or a stopwatch, I want you guys to be comfortable wherever it is that you are, okay? And close your eyes and start your stopwatch. And when you feel like a minute has passed by, I want you to stop your stopwatch. And then I will, at a given point in time, tell you guys to kind of give me feedback. So I'm not going to tell you guys when a minute is up, but I want you to, you know, honestly sit down comfortably, start your stopwatch, and stop it when you think a minute is up. Okay. So we can start now. I'll give it some time, and then I'll bring back the floor. Okay, so we can stop now. If anyone is willing to share how long the activity took them, you can unmute your mic and share or raise your hand, whatever or whatever it is. I'd like to have like 3 volunteers.
So I counted.
Okay.
And it actually took me 1 minute and 18 seconds.
1 minute and 18 seconds. Okay. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I also counted in my mind, and it took me 1 minute, 27 seconds.
Okay. Was there anyone who didn't count or who didn't count and just use your stopwatch that got a time back that wanted to share?
I used my stopwatch, so it was I think 1 minute and 3 seconds.
Oh, nice. Okay. And I did this activity while preparing for this, and it actually took me 1 minute and 3 seconds to do it. Was there anyone who stopped their stopwatch or looked at their clock less than 1 minute after we started? Anyone?
Yes, like 27 seconds.
27 seconds? Okay, cool. And so essentially, like the reason I wanted us to do that is because as you guys can see, we all have different perceptions of what a minute looks like. For some of us, 27 seconds feels like a minute. For some of us, a minute and 27 seconds feels like a minute. And so essentially, you know, for the people who like, you know, maybe their perception of a minute was less than a minute, think about that. You know, how does this affect you? Do you feel like you're always rushing to do things because you don't think you have enough time? And, you know, as a result of this exercise, how does that kind of put that into perspective? And for those of us who, you know, our perception of a minute was, you know, a little more than a minute, are we frequently late to appointments because we think we have more time than we really do? That's kind of what this practice helps us with. You know, sometimes in our mind, we're thinking this, and because we think we don't have enough time, we're rushing. And some of us think we have more than enough time, and maybe that affects the way we're dealing with stuff and doing things. And so, I think practicing mindfulness and being aware of what our perception of time is very important, because then we can focus on, slowing down if it is like we feel like we're always on the go. And if we're always taking time, maybe being more aware of how much time we're spending doing things. And so I would be curious if you guys like, maybe tomorrow, a week from now, a couple weeks from now, when you're being more mindful, trying this exercise again and seeing, like, in actuality, if there's any improvement in your perception of time. So that's the first activity that I wanted us to do. The second activity that I wanted to share is called mindful breathing. And I think this will be very helpful for a lot of us, for some of us. And so this is going to also involve kind of getting in a comfortable place, and using our breath. And so, as we have all noticed from talking about mindfulness, very often we get distracted by our thoughts and the things that are around us. And one of the best ways to kind of get ourselves in the present moment is to focus on our breath. And so if you guys don't mind, wherever you are, just, sit in your chair comfortably, on your couch, whatever it is, and close your eyes. So I'm going to say a couple of prompts to kind of help us get through this mindful breathing activity. And so I will start in about 1 second. And so with your eyes closed, I want you guys to take a few slow, long breaths and relax. So breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Place one hand on your stomach as you're breathing in slowly through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. And then as you're breathing in and out, I want you to feel your stomach rise and fall as you breathe. As you're doing this, I want you to imagine your belly is filling up with air like a balloon as you breathe in and deflating as you breathe out. As you're breathing, I want you to notice the sensations that you're feeling in your body. So feel your lungs fill up with air. And with each breath, notice how your body feels more and more relaxed. So deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you continue to breathe, I want you to count your breaths each time as you exhale. You can count either silently to yourself or aloud. And so each time you breathe out, you count until you reach 4, and then begin counting at 1 again. So you begin breathing slowly with 1. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4 as you breathe in through your nose, and then 4, 3, 2, 1 as you breathe out. And keep on doing this. In again, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then out through your mouth, 3, 2, 1. And if you guys can do that about 1 or 2 more times, and notice how your stomach is rising and falling as you're breathing in and breathing out. Feel the breath going through your nose, feel your stomach rising, taking slow, long breaths. And continue to focus or shift your focus through the physical sensations that you're having, the experience of breathing, counting. And if you notice any thoughts or distractions that are coming up when you're breathing in, whether it's memories, sounds, emotions, try and remove your focus from that and bring yourself back to it. Acknowledge that you're having the distraction, but also bring yourself back to it. Bring yourself back to the breathing. Breathe in. Breathe out. Feel it rising in and rising out. And I want for you guys to take one last deep breath in and one last deep breath out. Do I have everyone still here with me? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. For anyone who, would anyone like to share how they felt after that experience? It could be, you know, I was distracted the whole time. I had a hard time focusing, or, you know, I felt like this was relaxing, or I feel like this didn't do anything for me. I'm willing to hear any type of thing. I'd just like for you guys to share how that exercise went.
This is Nikki again. I've been told by my boss, especially to work on my breathing techniques.
Yes.
And I find that I struggle with that even now, even with doing yours. It definitely helped me feel better, but I wasn't able to exhale fully. I was fine counting forward from 1 to 4, but counting backwards from 4 to 1, I kept on stopping around 3. Kept on stopping around 3 and found it a bit of a struggle to make it to 1. But I do feel a little bit more relaxed, and I think it's something I need to practice more often.
Yeah. And I was going to say that it takes practice. I'm going to tell you, like, I personally don't enjoy doing the breathing exercises because I'm like, I feel like I'm about to get out of breath, like, you know, but breathing, which is also interesting, like there's that breathing exercise when I'm working out. In order for me to actually successfully get through my workout, I have to control my breathing. So it's like the same practice, breathing and breathing, you know, breathing in and breathing out. And I find that when I'm better able to regulate that, my workout sessions actually go better. So yeah, it takes practice. And that's kind of like what I want to emphasize is it takes practice. Thank you for sharing, Nikki.
I'd like to share.
Okay.
So I've tried my hand at meditation amongst other things like breathing. So breathing was pretty easy for me. This was, you know, I love to do deep breaths in and out, but I find that even when I try to reach an optimal state of relaxation, I always feel like I have 10 tabs open in my brain. So while you're coaching me through breathing, and indeed I am listening and connecting with what you're saying, I'm also thinking about what I have to get done in the next 10 minutes after your session and what I have to do tomorrow. So my mind feels like it's still operating on drive, although I should be parked at the moment.
Yes. And I'm glad that you shared that, because that is what mindfulness is. Like, you know, you are, like, we're humans, we're often going to get distracted, right? We're going to have those moments where those tabs open. Catch yourself and bring yourself back in. Just reminding yourself about that. Catch yourself. You, like you said, you notice you were getting distracted. Yes, acknowledge that, and then bring yourself back into the experience. Bring yourself back into the experience. I think that's how mindfulness will work and help, is like, you know, it's going to happen, it's bound to happen. I don't think, I feel like it's very hard for anyone to be 100% mindful, just because of the way our mind moves and the way it works. But we can always try to be, you know, maybe 80%, 90%, you know. Catch yourself and bring yourself back in. Catch yourself and bring yourself back in. Trying this maybe once a day could help in terms of getting yourself to that point. And then it might be that as you do more practice, your body knows that, okay, at this couple of minutes, we're going to do this breathing. I'm going to focus here. You're training yourself. So thank you for sharing that, Iffy.
Thank you, Dr. Tobi.
Anyone else want to share before we move on?
Hi.
Okay.
Hi.
Chizoba.
Hey, Chizoba.
For me, I was actually trying to keep myself awake. Like, so that was what was going on in my head. I was like, okay, you don't have to sleep. But now I don't know if it's because of the time difference, because I had to wake up early to join this. And stuff. So like it was kind of like relaxing and soothing. And maybe probably because I'm still under my duvet listening to So I didn't get out of my morning routine. I just went, okay, this is Saturday morning. It's fine. I can listen to this while still lying in bed and stuff. So when you said the deep breathing and stuff, I was consciously telling myself not to disconnect from the exercise.
Yeah.
And stay on it. Yeah, so that was just what happened to me.
Well, thank you for joining bright and early. And it's a testament to show that deep breathing can actually, for some people, make them feel sleepy because it does help relax. So thank you for sharing that. I think there was someone else who wanted to share as well.
Chinazon, please.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Hello,
This is
Chinazon.
Chinazon. So, yeah, actually, just like Nikki said, I found it hard to count back. Instead of counting 4, 3, 2, 1, I was counting 5, 6, 7, 8. So, but then I enjoy mindfulness because I recently discovered it on my Samsung. There's this discovery thing and there's mindfulness. So I've kind of been practicing, trying to concentrate and sleep because most times I don't sleep. So anytime I feel like I want to sleep, I need to sleep. I put it on and I just follow the instructions.
Yes.
It just plays on and I sleep.
Yes.
I just wake up and I remember like, oh, actually this helped me sleep. So that's it. It's nice, but it's actually hard for me to concentrate. But right now I did it and I almost left off actually. Yes. It was relaxing. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It is relaxing. And for some of you, if you did enjoy this practice, you can record something on your phone. If you're having a hard time with the counting, you can record it on your phone. So your phone can help you do the counting. You just have a recording for like a minute to 5 minutes, whatever works for you, with your own instructions on how to do your breathing. And just do that, once a day, practice, and then you get better at that. But I'm happy that you, Chinazon, you mentioned like finding an app on your phone. For some people, this might not work for everyone, but for some people, there's a bunch of apps. There's something called Headspace, something called Calm, another one called Insight Timer, and they all have like meditation or mindfulness things, exercises for sleep, anxiety, feeling sad or needing a recharge. Like they have mindfulness practices that you can use. That's something that I like. Sleep is one of my things, and I've used one of the apps to help me with sleeping. I also count backwards from 1,000, and I've never gotten to one because I always fall asleep before the number is completed. So to kind of put everything together, acceptance and mindfulness. So I know you guys already have a lot of things that you do to cope, but I think when we look at how to deal with things beyond the pandemic, because there's going to be stress beyond the pandemic, as you guys know, because before the pandemic, we also had stress. Acceptance is one way to kind of get ourselves in the mindset of, okay, this thing has happened, but it's not, I'm going to change the way I view this. I'm going to change my attitude towards this. And so while this might not be ideal, I can make it through this time. So like accepting, changing our focus, shifting our focus, that's one thing to do, right? And then the other part is mindfulness. Mindfulness and acceptance go together. They're parts of a puzzle, and they go together pretty nicely in that, you accept what is going on. You are thinking about being in the present moment. When you get distracted, bring yourself back to that present moment. Give non-judgmentally, right? Give yourself grace to feel all the emotions that you're having. Do a breathing exercise to kind of, bring yourself in the present moment. Acknowledge that you're being anxious, but that you're going to be able to get through this. So this is all of your emotions. It's normal to feel those emotions. So that's how acceptance and mindfulness can come into play and work together to help with coping. So that's that part. And then the last activity I wanted you guys to do, as you remember at the start, we we had to get a piece of paper and write down what we noticed in the room. I want you guys, based on everything you've done today, to take another piece of paper and notice what is in the room that you're in. And I'll give you guys about 30 seconds to do that, and then we'll have like maybe 2 volunteers to share their before and after, and then we'll go from there. Okay. All right. Does anyone want to share their what they wrote on the piece of paper before the activity and what they noticed after the presentation? We can have like maybe 1 or 2 people share. Okay. So we don't have any volunteers, but for anyone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll volunteer.
Oh, okay.
Sure. Forgive me. Sorry. I'm
no,
just late. So prior to the start of the activity, I was able to notice my television, which is glaring at me, and I've decided to move it out of my bedroom for more concentration. I also noticed some jewelry kits. I noticed some closet doors. I don't know why that stood out to me, but the closet doors were just staring at me. And I noticed some slippers that were actually hiding under my desk that I had never really paid attention to before this call. At the end, upon reflection, I've now noticed a set of dumbbells that I really don't even look at. But maybe this is a sign from God. I notice them now. And alongside that, I equally noticed a weight scale and a pen that is hiding under my television.
Nice, nice, nice. Anybody else want to share? Thank you so much for sharing, Ify.
Thanks, Dr. Tobi.
Okay. So essentially, the purpose of that was that, I know before this, some of us were kind of maybe in a rush. I know like in the last minute, I was like, oh no, I'm running late and didn't notice a bunch of things. But in the process of like calming down and paying attention, I've been able to look around and like, okay, the trees are moving, this is happening. But essentially, like whenever we're able to practice mindfulness, we're more aware of our surroundings. And it's definitely something that you want to be able to practice in your daily life. It takes practice. So I hope you guys, after this, will try to incorporate, whether it's mindfulness, mindful breathing, or, meditation, whatever it is, to develop that practice in your lives, and hopefully that reduces some of the anxiety or stress that you may be dealing with. So now I have the Q&A session where we can ask questions or talk about anything else that you weren't clear of or sure about from the presentation. If there's any questions.
Hi, it's Chizaba again.
Hello.
So I just have a question.
Okay.
And it has to do with, when you had asked that, how do we cope with stress?
Yes.
And stuff. So I just wanted to know if maybe I'm weird or something like that. Because for me, what I do is I try to black out. Like, I don't know how to put it. Especially in with the COVID situation, because in the US here, my organization is very much involved with it and stuff, even though I'm working remotely, but I get do, you know. So I kind of, once work is over, I don't really want to like, whatever. I just want to blank out and that's just it until okay, when I get back, you know, the next day, or maybe if my phone buzzes up because, oh, I need to send something to somebody or blah, blah, blah. But I kind of not want to think about it in as much as I know is the reality and stuff. And that is just what I do with like stresses and stuff. I just, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's the right thing to do. I don't know, but I kind of blank out and say, okay, take it out from my mind and that's just it.
Yeah.
And that's how I've been coping.
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're saying is like you kind of like you put it away, put it aside. It sounds like you're acknowledging that you have the things to do, but when you get home, you're separating your home space from your workspace, right? That's what it sounds like. Yeah. I think, you know, I think that is a healthy way to deal with things. If something stresses you out, you're acknowledging that it's stressful for you, right? And you're going to allot a time, like you've created a boundary for yourself to where I'm going to deal with this during working hours. When I get home, my, you know, my home time is for me. So that sounds healthy to me. You know, being able to separate work from home is something that a lot of people are not able to do, right? Some people get home and they continue to do work and they go back to work the next day and their life is work and work is life. But, you know, some people, for them, it's like home is home, work is work. When I get home, I'm going to focus on myself, my family, my other goals. The work stuff can wait till when it's work. So I think there's a lot of people who actually do that. I don't think it's a weird coping mechanism.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions that anyone has?
Yes, I think Sijuola has a question.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thanks. So I have a question. Just piggybacking off Chizoba's own question about work and stress and work-life balance. I was gonna ask, so, you know, I guess for most people it's the same thing with trying to really implement work-life balance realistically. I find that I've been saying for the whole year since January that I'm really big on work-life balance. I'm going to be big on work-life balance this year. But what on things, either I decide, I work 9 to 6, so either at 6 o'clock I decide, okay, I'm not going to work anymore, but then I feel guilty like watching TV or just like, you know, just, I don't know, arranging my room or whatever. Or I just say, well, you know, let me just, since I'm not doing anything, let me just go ahead and do some work anyway, right? So even if I have other things to do that are like my personal projects, because I know that some of these things for work are time sensitive or whatever, I tend to feel bad doing things that are not as time sensitive just because I'm trying to do life balance. So I don't know if you have any advice for that.
Yeah, I would recommend like as best as you can. And like it goes back to the part where you say I feel guilty. You know, why do you feel guilty? I think is like the first question that you could ask yourself, you know, and reminding yourself that yeah, it's an emotion that you're feeling. It's the guilt. Yes, you're feeling guilty, but does that mean a particular thing? You know, asking yourself that question. And then also just, you know, I think it's kind of like a mindset thing is what it sounds like, because it sounds to me like you don't want to indulge or reward yourself for doing the work that you've done for some reason. But I think that the best way to handle that is to ask yourself, why do you feel guilty? That often helps us understand like, okay, maybe it's more than the guilt, because guilt usually comes from something else. But yeah, I think that is the first step, is asking yourself why you feel guilty. Like, do you feel like you don't deserve to spoil yourself? You know, might be that, and changing that mindset, because you've worked, right? You've worked all day from 9 to 6. It should be okay to relax the body and the mind that worked all day. So I think that is the first step with working through that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to know, Dr. Tobi, if you have any tips for us getting back into the world, getting back out there, any tips for how to be prepared, getting back to our normal work schedules, normal lifestyles, anything to do that can help us be mindfully ready to take on the world.
Yeah.
Once
Lovely
this
question.
lockdown is over.
Yeah, great question. I think what's going to be important is to ease yourself in. I know, like, all over the world, there's different, dates as to when things are going to open and when things are going to go back. I think it's good that we have an idea that, there's going to be some type of normalcy, but ease yourself back in. If you're able to, I know, like, so some people, work may want you back at a certain time, but if you're able to ease yourself back in, don't just throw yourself in if you're not feeling completely, comfortable. Like, if you're anxious about still going to the salon or the beach or, being around people, take your time, give yourself grace. Don't rush, into getting back into doing things again. We need to remind ourselves that the world was literally disrupted for at least 2 months, and it's going to take some time getting back in there. So kind of like getting into a pool, you dip in one leg at a time. When you're trying to get comfortable, you don't just jump in the deep end. Do that with, getting back in. So one step at a time. You might do a rollout, okay, maybe this week I'll go here, next week I'll go to these other places, and just kind of go from there. So that would be my biggest tip for everyone, is to give yourself time, ease in, and go at your own pace. Just because everyone else is able to do it doesn't mean you have to. If you don't feel comfortable, do what you're comfortable with. So.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I have a question you can ask.
Okay.
So pre-COVID-19 and the current chaos and status of the world, I think as individuals, we all had certain, I guess, aspects of fear, be it reasonable and unreasonable. And I think that now what we've seen is that, fear has now been amplified, right? Through the media, through your colleagues, through the stories and things of that nature. So to piggyback off what Nikki said, as we begin to reintroduce ourselves to the world, do you have some tips as it relates to fear and the anxiety that's caused by fear of the unknown?
Yeah, good question. And it would be with any, the answer I'll have to that is the same way we would handle any type of anxiety and fear that we have. I want to normalize that we're going to be anxious and we're going to feel fearful. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm anxious and fearful about stuff as well, because no one really knows, right? And when you don't know, it brings anxiety. Like, it's just normal. So I want to acknowledge that that is going to happen. And I think we should just be prepared to feel that. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you or things are strange. You're likely going to feel anxious. And that's because we don't know what's going on. But taking it one step at a time is the best way to deal with that. Dealing with what the information that we do know, like, okay, well, we know that, we should stay away from someone who has a cough or do this, blah, blah, blah. Do that, because that's one thing that can help you be less anxious, right? Focus only on, reliable sources of news. Don't be around people that are going to invoke anxiety in you. You know what I mean? Don't, expose yourself to things that could kind of increase your levels of anxiety. Be deliberate, be intentional in the things that you're doing as you're going back into the world. So, answer to that briefly, acknowledge that you will feel anxious. I think we're all going to feel that way. And then, as best as you can, be deliberate and intentional with the things that you're doing until we have more data or information to where we can all feel comfortable again.
Thanks, Dr. Tobi.
You're welcome. I think Simi had a question.
Yes, I had a question. So my question is really from the angle of people like us who used to work in traditional work hours and have transitioned to working from home. Because my biggest struggle is the fact that there's no work-life balance anymore, because people believe that you're always awake or you're always online because you should be available because you're working from home. You're not going anywhere. So you can't claim that you were in traffic or you were trying to get to work. But then for like my profession, I feel as if the new normal is going to be to some degree working from home. And then my main issue is how to balance work-life balance, if that's the thing. Because at this stage, I find myself working till 3 a.m. sometimes on Sundays. The other day, I was trying to make a point during office meeting that a day was a public holiday day. And then my boss said, well, you guys are home anyways, so why are we taking public holidays? But I'm like, the public holiday is for me to decide to do or not do whatever I want to do. And I'm at the point where people call me at 10 p.m. and they're like, oh, well, can you get on this transaction? And I'm like, it's 10 p.m. But they're like, well, you're awake anyway.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's going to become a thing because, first of all, it's easier for the employer to have people work from home. They don't have to pay for internet. They don't have to pay for diesel. They don't have to pay for working space if they're paying by the month. So it's convenient for them. So at what stage is this new normal going to find a balance for people like us who are readily available? And there's the assumption that we're always awake or we're always available because we're at home.
Yeah. That's a very good question. And I think it's something that employers actually have to sit down and be in on this conversation. Like if you're an employer, like just because we're at home doesn't necessarily mean that now that home is work, if that makes sense. Like I think employers and also, employees should have that conversation in that, yes, we are at home working from home, but you're not like you're still living the life that you lived before the pandemic happened. And so if anyone's an employer on here, this is a good question, because I think managing expectations during this time is important, because you don't want to put stress on the people that are bringing in the money for your company. And so, keeping the working hours, 8 to 5, 7 to 6, 9 to 5, whatever it is, the way they are, should be something that are enforced. And then, from your standpoint, I think what would be important is creating that boundary for yourself if you can. Now, I know everyone has different types of employers, which is why I think there has to be a conversation that, yes, we're able to work from home, but we can't work all day, right? It's almost impossible as human beings to do that. Like, no one should be having to get a work call at 10 p.m., when you can call them in the next morning to get it done. So, I mean, I don't know if I have the perfect answer to that question, but I think it's a conversation that maybe from here we should be having with our employers, because yes, this could be a lot of people's quote unquote new normal. And, just because some things have changed, that is the workplaces and in the work building, doesn't mean that the things that came with that disappear, if that makes sense. I'm sorry that you're having to deal with that, Simi. And I'm hoping that you work in a place where you can have that conversation with.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, everyone. It's been a very interesting conversation. For me, it wasn't just me. Yes, you're seeing my photo, but I had my 2 teenage kids by my side, and I ensured that they took notes as well. So I want to believe that this is a very present and real conversation that we are really very fortunate to have, thanks to Dr. Tobi making herself available. And also we want to especially thank Adaeze, who is leading the Design Your Great Life team, who has also thought it wise to bring this kind of conversation to us. So we are so thankful. I earlier teased there, Dr. Tobi, that this is a free therapy session for all of us. And I'm certain that we all feel that way. So we want to take a few last words from Dr. Tobi and probably just get her to, in 1 minute, give us something that even if we've forgotten everything that was discussed in this 1 hour, 30 minutes or thereabout, that we would always have at the back of our mind. Dr. Tobi, please.
Yes. So really quickly, I put up this slide about how to engage with me, whether it's email, Twitter, Instagram, podcasts. It's all mental status quo. And then to get to the one thing that I will ask everybody to take away, I will say that, essentially, we are not in control of our situations, but we can control our reactions and our responses to that. That is one thing that we can do. I know we're living in a very strange and different time, but we can make the outcome of it a positive one for ourselves. It is not a cool time to live in, but we can change our response and we can manage our response. It is okay if you feel overwhelmed and anxious. Everyone is feeling that. I feel it from time to time. And I just remember that, okay, this is normal, this is going to happen. And whenever, it passes, I get along and I move with it. But yeah, acknowledge and deal with every emotion you may feel. We're all in this together. We're all feeling that. And we can manage our response, although we can't completely change the situation. That is my takeaway.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. So just like we said, would want to also give her a thunderous round of applause. So I'm going to unmute everyone now. So we can do that. 1, 2, and go. All right. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We'll find a way to make sure that everyone gets the presentations. And please, this is just an opportunity that Design Your Great Life has presented to help you to actually design your great life. And what better way than for you to be in control of your mind, in control of your emotions and all that. Thank you so much, Dr. Tobi. Thank you, Adeze. I don't know if Ada has anything to tell us. I think she should have something to tell us. Ada, please, the floor is yours.
Just to say thank you so much, Dr. Tobi. You really shared some amazing nuggets for us when it comes to taking care of our mental health. And my excitement about having you as a guest is the fact that I don't think this is an area that we focus on enough, especially in African communities, especially in female African communities. And to see you leading the charge when it comes to really pushing mental health wellness to the forefront, I'm just so proud. So when I was able to connect with you and get you to come on this webinar, it meant so much to me. So thank you so much. I've learned.
Thank you.
All right, people. It's officially over now. For those that could not get their questions answered, please feel free to shoot Dr. Tobi an email, mentalstatusquo@gmail.com. You'll see that in the chat box, and then I'm sure we can get to connect from her, and then the conversation can continue. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I wish you an amazing weekend. For us here in Nigeria, it's actually a long weekend. There is this public holiday on Monday and Tuesday.
It's one for us here in America.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So.
All right. All right, people. Thanks and have a great evening.
Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.